All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Applying a Vision of Unified and Sacred Marriages. I'm Suzanne Alexander. I was born and raised in Canada. It's very fun tonight to be with a group of Canadians, although probably you're from all over the world, but located in Canada. Uh, My parents were Baha'is in the community of Canada for many decades, and so it's exciting for me to be together with all of you this evening. My name is Suzanne Alexander. I'm a relationship and marriage coach, and together with me tonight is my husband. So I don't know, depending on how you're looking at the people on the screen, Phil, you can wave your hand and
Hi,
indicate
everybody.
where you, where you are. Um, Tonight, the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Burlington, Ontario, has asked me to share with you some insights about marriage. And um, I need to warn you that this is an interactive session, so there are times I'm going to be asking for volunteers to read. I'm going to be asking you questions and invite you to provide answers. Share a little bit about yourselves and your lives. So fair warning. And we're going to go for about an hour through the slide presentation and talking and interacting. And then we'll have about a half an hour of just open conversation about the topic of marriage, anything that you'd like to raise. So our focus tonight then is on marriage and family as spiritual entities that are foundational for society. We're going to take a look at marriage from both a physical and a spiritual unity standpoint. And we're going to explore some elements of what a sacred marriage is. And to start us off, Phil has agreed to do an opening prayer for us. So,
Grant, O my Lord, that this marriage may be auspicious, joyous, blessed, and praiseworthy. Strengthen thou the union and increase the harmony between these two souls, that they may live together in the utmost tranquility and delight, and may establish a devoted family that believeth in thee and in thy signs. Verily, thou art the all bountiful. Verily, thou art the Almighty, the Omnipotent, the most powerful. Abdul Baha.
thank you, Phil. And I should have mentioned actually, we're down in Tennessee in the United States, so you can geographically locate us. So, tonight we're going to look at what does it take to create a sacred marriage. And if I could have my first volunteer read both of these quotations, and then I'm going to be asking you the question, what might be some of the elements of a sacred marriage? And if you're willing to participate, down at the bottom of your screen, you should have a raise hand button. If you do that, you'll pop up to the top of my screen and I'll know who's willing to read. All right. Yeah. I'm not sure whether it's Cynthia or Omid who's volunteering, but whichever one of the two of you it is, please go ahead.
Creating a sacred marriage. Marriage is a very sacred institution. Baha'u'llah said its purpose is to promote unity. We are trying to create a high moral standard and reinstate the sanctity of marriage. On behalf of Shoghi Effendi. Baha'is should be profoundly aware of the sanctity of marriage and should strive to make their marriages an eternal bond of unity and harmony. This requires effort and sacrifice, and wisdom and self-abnegation on behalf of the House of Justice.
What are your thoughts if you were to look at marriage as something that is sacred? What might be some of the elements of the marriage that would tell you that it's sacred? Or spiritual, if you want to use that term instead. Any thoughts?
That you're striving towards spiritual principles and moral rectitude in a closer relationship with God.
Yeah, and if you're operating according to spiritual principles, what might be an example of a spiritual principle to follow?
Such as trustworthiness and applying it in your life and in your relationships with others.
Great example. Any other thoughts from people? What might be another element that would say your marriage is spiritual or sacred?
Striving to help each other grow spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you each individually become stronger and stronger spiritually. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's keep going. There will be more ideas that come up here. All right, so the first sacred element that we're going to take a look at is service. And that begins with service in the home, as the husband and wife are of service to each other, as the parents are of service to the children, as the children are of service to the family. That's an element that brings the sacred in. So if I could have a volunteer read these two quotations. There we go. Yasmin, please.
Right.
I lost my people for just a moment, so it took me go ahead.
Husband and wife should be united both physically and spiritually, that they may ever improve the spiritual life of each other and may enjoy everlasting unity throughout all the worlds of God. Abdul Baha. The unity of your family should take priority over any other consideration. Baha'u'llah came to bring unity to the world, and a fundamental unity is that of the family. It is important for you to arrange your time so that your family life is harmonious and your household receives the attention it requires. On behalf of the Universal House of Justice.
Yeah, so there was a comment a minute ago about improving the spiritual life of each other, and here's the quotation that talks about that. Thank you, Yasmin. The Universal House of Justice recently wrote a letter about marriage and family, and they speak about a home being a unique social space, that it is the home that helps to contribute to community building. So it says, in the loving environments of the home, family members support one another and they assist one another in playing their part to transform society. So there's warm hospitality, and there's intellectual progress, and there's spiritual, the term they use is quickening. So there's this element of spiritual growth and energy that comes through gathering people together in your home. So service we just spoke of service within the home, within the family, but service is also outward looking, where Baha'u'llah talks about promoting the best interests of the peoples and kindreds of the earth, that we're to act to illuminate the world, that we're to serve humanity. And service is one of the things that brings unity in the family. So that's another one of the sacred elements of marriage. Virtues came up a bit ago too, talking about trustworthiness, which of course is linked to truthfulness. And so another sacred element of marriage are the virtues. And I don't know if there's anybody on the call tonight who is not yet married. This quotation, the second quotation here, talks about the importance of knowing each other's characters thoroughly before you step into marriage, because the virtues that you practice affect each other in the couple relationship, and they also have a strong effect on your children who you are raising to have good characters. So within marriage, it's very important that the virtues then influence how we speak to each other. So if I could have a volunteer, and my view of people keeps disappearing. Okay, it looks like either David or Trish, whichever one of you is raising your hand, if you can read these two quotations for us, please.
Sure. Virtues-based communications. Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. And that's what Abdu'l-Baha quoted by Shoghi Effendi. Content, volume, style.
Just
It's okay.
No, that was me.
That's all right. Content, volume, style, tact, wisdom, timeliness are among the critical factors in determining the effects of speech for good or evil. Their efforts at such discipline will give birth to an etiquette of expression worthy of the approaching maturity of the human race. Just as this discipline applies to the spoken word, it applies equally to the written word, and that's from the Universal House of Justice.
So I think it bears repeating these key things that affect how we speak to each other in marriage. So truthfulness, which, as I said, leads to trustworthiness. But these other words here, what we say, whether we are loud or soft, how we deliver the words that are coming out of our mouth, whether we're able to be tactful and wise and timely as we speak to each other. These affect the quality of our relationship on a daily basis. So can you think of other virtues? What other virtues affect the words that you use or how you interact with each other verbally? Any thoughts? You can just call it out, whoever has an idea.
Patience or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
That was high on my list, Trish.
Any others?
Respect and consideration.
Yeah, respect's the big one.
Kindness.
Mm-hmm.
I think intention also. Like, what is the intention of your communication?
Mm-hmm. Any others? One of the things that's important when you think about virtues-based communications is the wisdom of pairing virtues together. So we have truthfulness, but truthfulness, when we deliver it, is much more likely to have a positive effect if we pair it together with tact, with kindness, with gentleness. All of those kinds of virtues paired together with truthfulness makes it much easier for our partner to hear what it is that we have to say. So here are some examples of words that encourage, words that support and affirm the best in each other. So there's 3 examples down here at the bottom of how you might speak with your wife or your husband or anybody else. Thank you for being helpful when you brought in the groceries. I appreciate the courage that you showed when you asked your manager for a raise. I love how enthusiastic you are when our children are playing sports and are achieving new things. So as we include virtues language in speaking to each other, it speaks to the soul of each other and the heart of each other and encourages us to keep growing spiritually. So here's another sacred element of marriage, and that's well-being. Science is definitely saying that marriage provides an atmosphere and a situation where you can encourage each other's well-being. And Baha'u'llah here says that when he wanted to manifest grace and beneficence, when God wanted to manifest grace and beneficence and to set the world in order, he established the law of marriage and made it a fortress for well-being and salvation. And so together as a couple, part of our goal and mission is to increase well-being. When Phil and I got married, one of the things that we did was promise each other that we would do our best to exercise every day. And we don't always do it. We don't always make it. But because we made that promise and that commitment to support the Fortress for Wellbeing in that way, we're much more likely to exercise.
I'd like to give a shout out to Suzanne right here as well, because I think she's more concerned with my well-being than I am, and I'm very grateful for that.
When he got married, he had drawers of candy. So his diet has definitely improved. So this concept of a fortress, and I've got a picture here for you. What do you think are some of the elements? Why that particular metaphor? Why fortress? What is it that marriage as a fortress brings to your mind? What is it that's important about a fortress? What function does a fortress have on the landscape? Any ideas?
Impenetrable.
Mm-hmm. Strong.
I feel like it protects you,
Mm-hmm.
like it will be protecting you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the images that we have talked about in the past, maybe long past, but was of sort of standing back to back, but looking out at the world. So in that way, you're interacting in with the world, but you're protecting each other.
Cynthia said being trapped inside.
Which could,
It wasn't me.
Yeah, blink if you need help. No, I'm just kidding.
Blink.
if you look at where this fortress is located, often they are at a high vantage point where they can look out and see what's around them, and which has a protective aspect. It's
It's
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the idea of fortress, I mean, why would you need a fortress? And I think the thing is that even if you don't consider marriage, individuals need to be protected from all that is bombarding the spirit, materialism and backbiting and all these other things. I mean, they're all out there in the environment, and of course, a marriage is a fortress where you have protection and help and collaboration, and you're helping, you're accompanying one another to try to deal with these forces together, and with your children and with the people you know.
Absolutely, excellent points. The person who just spoke, could I ask you actually to now read this quotation? This is in the letter that just came from the Universal House of Justice about marriage and family. They list some of the things that are integral to marriage.
Okay, so in Baha'i marriage, love, equality, intimacy, fidelity, sexual relations, childbearing, and child rearing are integrated and in their interconnection strengthened, establishing a fortress for personal and social well-being.
So then there's spiritual well-being, where the union must be a true relationship, a spiritual coming together as well as a physical one. So note the pairing there, spiritual as well as physical, so that the union will endure. Both things are necessary. We already talked about practicing virtues being one of the spiritual well-being elements. You can have spiritually related activities such as the arts, music, and prayer, and so on. Service to each other, as we already spoke about, and offering hospitality, doing service. All of these things are elements of spiritual well-being in the home. And then physical well-being, encouraging positive eating habits. There we go, Phil. And exercising together. We do very different kinds of exercise. So actually, we mostly exercise separately. Reminding each other of doctor's appointments. Science is very clear that married couples are much more likely to remember to go to the doctor and the dentist and so on, because you encourage each other to make those appointments. Supporting stress reduction, encouraging moderation, having an orderly and well-organized household. These are all elements of physical well-being that show up within the fortress. Managing money, touch of all kinds, whether that's a hug or a kiss, sexual intimacy, and so on, and providing a healthy place to raise your children. One of the things that you may not have thought about before that I'm going to cover here is this integration between the physical and the spiritual. Sometimes we tend to put them in boxes, that they're very different things. But if you notice, you can actually incorporate and pair together both the physical and the spiritual. So if you're doing a task together, whether it's cleaning, doing the dishes, whatever it is, if you're cooperating together, or maybe even having a spiritual conversation while you're doing this activity, then you've paired them together. If you are managing money, which people tend to think about as the material, physical side of things, but you're applying the virtues, responsibility, trustworthiness, and so on, then you've paired them together. So orderliness and responsibility together with managing a household. Sexual intimacy and touch requires gentleness, love, respect, and so on. Any other examples that people can think of where those two concepts are paired together? Any ideas? Since I can't see you, just go ahead and speak.
it's not a separate idea. I just wanted to comment that of this idea of looking at things from the two different perspectives of physical and spiritual, at the same time, or looking at the same activity from those two different perspectives. I think that can be very powerful and enlightening.
I think the principle of work is worship when done in the right spirit. I mean, you think of all kinds of things that we could do in the household and with our careers, all kinds of different things where that principle would apply. And so it's kind of I think in one way it's trying to develop the consciousness of that we're spiritual beings having a physical life.
Any others?
How about the physical task of raising your children, disciplining them, and consulting with them when something comes up, an issue comes up, or you need to, not correct the behavior, but modify a behavior?
You are raising both physical and spiritual human beings.
General living the life. In Abdul Baha's example, like be as I am, that is the to be spiritual is to live the life, and that's a physical act. It's not there is no praying is a spiritual act, but living the life as the exemplar is having a physical and spiritual life. I can't explain, but I don't imagine that we would go around and all be meditating to show that we are spiritual. We live the life, and that is an act of being spiritual.
Well, and living the life as you phrased it is being friendly to people. It's being courteous to people, being helpful, all of the virtues in action, I think.
Exactly.
So another sacred element of marriage is friendship. Friendship did not used to be considered part of marriage. Science now, though, is increasingly proving or speaking about the importance of friendship between married couples. Here, Abdu'l-Baha talks about the couple being helpmates, two intimate friends who should be concerned about the welfare of each other. John Gottman is one of the foremost researchers in the marriage field, and so the bullet points here are things that he speaks to: the importance of connecting and attuning and responding to each other, turning toward each other, which builds mutual trust. Couples that turn away from each other, obviously disunity starts to creep in. And he speaks about making minor and major bids for each other's attention, affection, humor, or support. And that when you're turning together, that creates a very strong marriage. And I can just give a very simple example. Phil and I live in a home on the lake. And so the sunsets over the lake are often quite beautiful. If one of us notices a beautiful sunset, we call to the other person and invite them to come and enjoy the beauty with us. If I invited Phil to come and watch the sunset and he said, "Oh no, I'm too busy," right, then my heart would be hurt and we would have missed an opportunity to connect with each other. And if you notice as you go through your lives, each day there are countless numbers of times when one of you will say something or show the other person something that is an invitation to connect. And it's important to pay attention to those and notice those. Any comment on that concept?
There's a term being used now of pebbles because penguins will give their mate a pebble. And so there's a term for these little bids for attention or, sharing something. It could be something from social media and you send it in a direct message, but the term is a pebble.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have an example from your marriage? Anything that you have observed or experienced that you would say is this bid for connection with your partner? Any examples?
I quite like to garden. I like to have flowers in my backyard.
Mm.
And when we go for a walk, if we see something that we think would be nice, we say, "Oh, we should have brought a shovel." But it's this recognizing that we both like, plants in the back.
I was going to say something along the same lines. I mean, nature is just full of beauty, and we both appreciate it so much. So there's a lot of drawing the other's attention to something that's beautiful that we know would be appreciated.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you, David. I wanted to comment.
Sorry, Phil. Hang on just a second. I just wondered, how do you and your partner feel when you do that? When you invite them to look at beauty with you?
Well, yeah, it's a point of unity. It's something that brings us closer, I think. And it's also something that I think in the realm of stress and calmness and, being centered, it helps that, especially, if it's nature related.
I think it was Phil, were you going to say something?
Yes, I wanted to reinforce what David was saying there about nature and the connection with nature. Suzanne and I have given each other permission to interrupt any conversation if we see an interesting animal near our home. And we were talking today, sitting down on the dock, and two red-tailed hawks were flying around over our house. We often see osprey. Every now and then we'll see one or two, maybe even two bald eagles. But yeah, anything like that, we have permission to interrupt a conversation to connect with nature and connect with God in that way.
You guys are so amazing with the nature. My husband loves shopping and looking at beautiful things. So I share that with him, sometimes unwillingly, but to keep him company. It's a big part. You would think that I'm joking, but it's an everyday occurrence. He just loves it. He just loves that shopping experience. And few of the siblings are laughing. They're on the call laughing, and their sister-in-laws or brother-in-laws, if they're there, they know I'm speaking the truth. It runs in their family, but it's not something I enjoy though. Shopping is not something I enjoy, but yeah, every day really.
Well, and it's a time of friendship with each other. So it's an opportunity potentially for you to figure out how to make it more enjoyable. Are there topics that come up during that time? What is elements of it might be increasing and improving your friendship? Maybe you start hiding special surprises and notes inside whatever it is he's looking at. I don't know. You can get creative. Mm.
My brother is very romantic. Okay.
I think it's not just, looking at beauties and stuff. Of course, that's very important, but also having that connection that even in times of when you're aggravated or you're stressed, to be reaching out for each other, and to sort of try to work through those
Yes.
moments as well.
Absolutely. When things are difficult, do you turn to each other for a hug? Do you invite each other to share how are you feeling about what's going on? It's that practice of turning toward each other under all circumstances that's important. And then
I
here,
feel,
go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I feel that every little act of kindness is very important in a marriage. And even a simple, for example, opening a whole watermelon, for example, and calling the partner, the spouse, to come over and taste the first taste of this opened watermelon or any fruit. It's just a sweet gesture.
Indeed. And then when juice drips all over the place, you can laugh, which is our our next slide here. So laughter and humor are important elements, very important spiritual elements um, in our marriages. This middle quotation here is from a Christian minister who is a stand-up comic, who wrote this book called Laugh Your Way to Grace. So she says, laughter is a spiritual practice. The transformative nature of any spiritual discipline comes with regular practice. When done consistently, it can eventually change our lives. If we make time to invite joy into our lives each day, we will become more aware of joy and laughter in our lives and in the world. Eventually, laughter will become an innate part of who we are. Could I have a volunteer to read that bottom quotation, which is the caution, kind of the balancing caution with humor and laughter?
I can read.
Oh, and
Okay.
go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. While laughter should not be suppressed or frowned upon, it should not be indulged. It should not be indulged in at the expense of the feelings of others.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Universal House of Justice.
Yeah, any comment on that? But when is laughter hurtful?
I think laughter, sense of humor is good, but sometimes it's also culturally defined. And what might be funny within a particular region, and that may not be so funny with someone else. But also, I mean, if in any way that it might hurt someone's feelings, or you're laughing at them rather than with them, then it's not a good thing.
Now here's another sacred element of marriage, equality. So could I have someone read both of these quotations for us?
I can read it.
Please.
A sacred element, equality. The world of humanity is possessed of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly. Abdu'l-Baha. In the Baha'i family, the married couple are true partners. One is not subordinated to the other. Together, they navigate life's challenges, whether spiritual, material, or social, through prayer, study, consultation, and reflection and action. Universal House of Justice.
And that again was from the letter that just came. So when we look at equality, the Baha'i writings make a distinction between equality not necessarily meaning that you do everything the same or that you are the same people. Often there are different roles, different functions, but you are still equal partners. So motherhood is highly valued, and therefore making sure that our women and mothers are educated so that they are excellent as mothers is important, but the father is responsible for the education of the children as well. Men have a primary responsibility for financial support of the family, but often both partners are working and contributing to the financial support of the family. But the decisions that you make and the way that you interact as respectful partners is what is linked then to equality. And equality is something that's very important as you're raising children. Many of you are parents. And the Baha'i International Community has this lovely statement about how equality tends to develop in the home. It's a bit of a long quotation, but I think it's a very powerful one. If I could have someone read it.
I could do that. Equality in children. The discipline that governs our relationships with the world is largely formed within the family. The tendencies to be unjust or just, to act violently or with kindness, to be dishonest or trustworthy are usually developed at home. These habits are then taken into every instance of social interaction, becoming either obstacles or stepping stones to progress, tearing apart or weaving together the very fabric of society. If brothers are allowed to dominate their sisters, for instance, a habit is formed that will be carried from the living room to the classroom, the workplace, and finally, the international arena. Conversely, when daughters are included in decision-making processes, when sons are encouraged to care for the household, characters are being developed. Children learn that the intellectual powers of both boys and girls are vital, that the nurturing qualities for which women are known are equally praiseworthy when demonstrated by men. And that's from the Baha'i International Community.
So we've just had 3 slides here about equality. Any comments from anyone on equality in general and how that shows up in marriage?
I think it shows up a lot in decision making, where one of the spouses may have a strong opinion, the other may not, or they may find that that consultation is almost universally valuable in decision making. Suzanne and I have certainly found that it's been. We're continually astounded at the value of decision making and how the spiritual component shows up, and we come through with much better decisions than we would have made any other way.
What else?
I can't remember the specifics now, but it was in a grade 2 classroom, and there was some kind of conversation that related to equality, and this boy expressed something that was really just awful. Awful in the sense that you knew that it was coming from home, but it was an attitude towards girls, and it was I think, oh gosh, these 2 paragraphs really emphasize how foundational the interactions within a family and with children are in terms of the development into a habit and an attitude towards others that would last the rest of your life, and as it says, in all these different spaces in society.
And it starts with them observing their parents. right?
Yes.
How their parents are interacting.
Yes.
I love that statement, more is caught than taught
Mhm.
when it comes to parenting.
Hmm.
So here's another sacred element of marriage, and that's praying together. When I meet with couples who are clients, I often ask them, "Are you praying together?" Because they're coming to me because as a result of there being some level of disunity between the two of them, and uh, what I ask them to think about is that when they pray together, Baha'u'llah or Abdu'l-Baha or God, or whatever is there for you when you pray, arises in between the two of you. And if you perceive a spiritual figure between the two of you as you are praying, it develops a vision in your marriage of there being this sacredness between you. And it is much harder to attack your partner, be critical towards your partner, to in any way behave such that disunity arises, because you have had this spiritual connection. And what I see in couples is that their relationship tends to improve when they start praying together. This is one of the prayers. A few months ago, the House of Justice released a compilation called "To Set the World in Order." And in the back of the compilation is a set of newly released prayers. And this is one of them. Is there anything that anyone wishes to share about praying together as a couple or family?
Many years ago, when we were investigating each other's character, we were fortunate enough to go to a workshop in Maine, actually, and it was to do with marriage. And one of the images that the presenter shared was of the couple with God above, but as you get closer to God, you get closer to each other. And so that was one of the images that I think helped us. So as you turn to God in prayer, you are actually coming closer to each other.
Bill mentioned consultation a couple of minutes ago. This is one of the very special, most sacred things that we find in marriage. What we have discovered is that when we are good at it, the closeness between us and the unity that arises out of consulting together is very powerful and keeps us definitely very connected. If I could have someone read the two bullet pointed quotations, please.
I can read it. Consultation has been ordained by Baha'u'llah as the means by which agreement is to be reached and collective course of action defined. It is applicable to the marriage partners and within the family. It requires all participants to express their opinion with absolute freedom and without apprehension that they will be censored and or their views belittled. Universal House of Justice. It must be remembered that the purpose of consultation need not always be to arrive at a particular or final decision, Often the aim may simply be to engage in an exchange of views so as to help clarify a certain matter and bring about unity of vision.
This is a really important point. We often tend to think about sitting down and consulting with the aim of reaching a decision that requires action. But one of the purposes of consultation is to build understanding. You share your feelings with each other, you share your thoughts, your perspectives, and then that brings about this unity of vision. This slide is to remind you that it's important to check in on each other's well-being, preferably before you consult, so that if you're hungry, you're tired, stressed, all kinds of things, if you're in a state that will interfere with consultation, then it's good to address those things before you actually sit down to speak about something vitally important to the two of you, if at all possible. So HALT up there, the acronym. So if you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're, I use L to be low energy, or tired, any of those things, it's good to halt, to pause before continuing. And that sometimes happens in the middle of consultation too, where you have to request, let's pause for a little bit, let's take a break, and then resume later. So what science is telling us, often still the scientists are saying conflict is natural, normal, and every couple does it and so on. So these are scientists who have yet to study consultation. The House of Justice talks about consultation being the panacea for domestic conflict. So if you start to see any of these signs of couple conflict happening, it can be triggering to say, wait a minute, maybe we need to take this into prayer and consultation. So if you are having interactions that are starting negatively and harshly instead of softly and gently, if there is an attack on each other's character, so, you're so lazy, anything that, is a direct attack on your partner's character is highly damaging, which is why earlier we talked about virtues language. Anytime you are showing contempt for your partner, highly destructive. And then what tends to happen is this defensive reaction or withdrawal. Sometimes there's physical symptoms, your heart rate goes up and so on. And couples then often struggle to repair the relationship. So making attempts to reach repair after a conflict is an important thing to do. It's also a warning sign if couples are focusing on their bad memories only and totally focused on negative in their relationship. And so if we're creating sacred marriages, these are behaviors that we don't want to be seeing happening in the marriage. And when we talk about healthy couple consultation, people often people are used to thinking about consultation maybe in a committee or some kind of group, and it's different as a married couple. At least it's for Phil and I, it's our experience that it's quite different. It's often more casual. We're sitting next to each other on the couch. We're taking a walk. There's a cup of tea in each of our hands. There are elements that make it much more relaxed and casual. Sometimes we pray together first. We're making sure that we listen to each other carefully and checking in with each other so that understanding is building as we go. Sometimes there's a big topic and we pick it up and we deal with it a bit and then we put it back down again, and it's the next day it comes back up. Often we'll consult over meals. But it's important for couples to be very conscious about saying, let's consult, or to put that framework around it that we're consulting. It's not just a casual discussion. You are actually focused on building unity and building understanding. And I put this cartoon in here. If I could have someone read this quotation, and then we'll see if there's any general comments people have about consulting together in marriage. So volunteer.
I can read. The unity in consultation. The fact that we imagine ourselves to be right and everybody else wrong is the greatest of all obstacles in the path towards unity. And unity is necessary if we would reach truth, for truth is one.
One of the key things with consultation is this concept of detachment. So I often ask couples who are struggling with consultation to put a bowl in between the two of them so that they can visually see that they are each contributing to what goes in the bowl. And that once they say something or share something, it's there in the middle. God can mix inspiration in with it. It mixes together with facts and feelings and so on in order to determine truth. But it is no longer belonging to either one of you, which helps you then to avoid this right-wrong dynamic that's very human, but it interferes in the process of actually coming to unity in consultation. So is there anything anyone would like to share about consultation in marriage? Anything where you find it easy, where you find it difficult, any ways you've found to do it? Any particular places that make it easier, or anything you'd like to share?
The spiritual component of it, I think, is so vital. Consultation, varies from and is different and unique from committee meetings in a professional setting or neighborhood get-togethers or other things, because in my mind, there's a spiritual component, an invitation for God to participate and be part of the process, and amazing insights then come from the spiritual component.
Thank you, Phil. Anyone else?
I was just thinking that I think that in different phases of life through marriage, I think the dynamics are quite different. For example, when Cynthia and I first got married and there was no kids, the chance of friction or dispute was much higher. Now with the small kids, it's like we hardly have time. So I think the dynamics do change as in the different stages of married life. Priorities change. So that was just a thought that I wanted to share.
What else?
Well, I was going to say that, it's easy to consult when it's not hitting a hot button, when the emotions are not high. So sometimes when, it's an irritating subject or very sensitive subject, obviously consulting right there and then is not going to work. So, you need a cool down period, you need to organize your thoughts and come back. And so it, sometimes seems like, oh yeah, it's so straightforward, there's a problem, let's consult about it. But in reality, it really is not that straightforward and not that easy.
Yeah, that's a good time for a halt break. Yeah, because the Baha'i writings about consultation talk about the clash of differing opinions, but it's clash of differing opinions that are delivered with kindness and humility and all of these kinds of things. It's not yelling at each other. There's a quotation from the research department that talks about it's the clash of differing opinions, it's not the clash of feelings. So if you get into arguing with each other and being angry with each other, then you have probably stepped out of consultation and it's a good time for a pause break. Yasmin?
Thank you. I think one of the advice that my husband and I, when we got married, was never go to bed angry. But then I was reading that it's actually not a very good advice, because you might need some space to, let's say some disagreement comes up, and you're both tired. It's actually good to go to bed, think about it, and then talk about it the next day. You know what I mean? So I don't know what you think about it, but I think it comes the same. It's kind of applies with consultation. Like maybe you do at times when it's a hot topic, as was mentioned, maybe it is a good idea to take a pause. And yeah, it doesn't have to be dealt with right then and there. Maybe a little bit of distance would be helpful.
Well, and good to recognize what contributes to the quality of the consultation. If you are, if you have spent 3 hours and it's past midnight and you're exhausted, is the quality of consultation going to be productive? And it's good to, have a moment of peacefulness together before you go to bed, so that you actually can both sleep and rest and recognize that you do have an agreement to talk about it the next day. So it's not, it's not just shoved under the carpet, but you actually recognize that it is something that you'll need to deal with. And, all right. We're almost at the end here. We've gone just a couple minutes past our hour, but you can tell this is a different format. A colleague and I put this slide together for a conference, and it's just the reminder to do, to study, to research. If you need to find the facts for consultation, that you do that before you head into consultation. That you then together consult, you go into action, come back and reflect. And these 4 steps are part of the culture of the Baha'i community globally, but they are also an essential part of marriage, where we are in learning and action together, and consulting and acting and reflecting and learning and all of these things together. So in summary, we've talked about marriage and family being spiritual and healthy entities that contribute to building community across the planet, that it's both physical and spiritual. Some of the components that we've talked about in terms of sacred marriages are service and hospitality, virtues, nurturing one another spiritually, friendship, laughter, communication, having this coherence between physical and spiritual unity, equality, being true partners, praying together and consulting, acting, reflecting, studying. And I'm going to have us end here with one final quotation. This is from marriage counselors Raymond and Farouk Switzer in their book Mindful Matrimony. So if I could have a volunteer to read this final quotation for us.
Humanity has developed through different stages of groupings: families, clans, tribes, villages, cities, nation states, and now the whole world. At the center of these expanding concentric circles of unity is the family, and the foundation of the family is the relationship between the wife and husband. Our understanding is that marriage holds within it the seed of the wider unity, and is a significant working ground for this ultimate goal. From this perspective, we can see how marriage functions not only for the best interests of both partners and their offspring, but that it also serves a higher, more expansive purpose.
So now I can see all of your beautiful faces again. So, what are your thoughts, or what's on your mind? Anything that anyone would like to share about marriage? Any questions you've got? Anything at all that you would like to bring up for group discussion? Chris?
Yes, I was thinking about how much more difficult consultation is in a marriage because it's two people, and it's so much more difficult to be detached from your opinion, your feelings, your everything when it's a two-way thing.
And there's no voting, right? If you've got a group,
Yeah.
Majority.
That's right.
sometimes you can have a majority vote. And the Baha'i writings talk about the concept of deferring to each other,
Mhm.
which is one way if you're really at an impasse. What I find is it can easily happen when one of you perhaps is better at something than the other. If we're in the middle of trying to get a new car, then, which is not something that I have a lot of experience in. My husband, who used to work for General Motors, knows cars inside and out. And so there are times when I will say, the final decision or the choice on this really needs to rest with you because you know a lot more about this than than I do. There are also times when you try to consult over and over and over, and you just cannot come to a decision. Both of you may have come up with good ideas, but it's just not clear what the path is. And so you can say to each other, honey, let's try it your way. Let's just get into action and go this way. And if we do it in unity together, then we'll figure out, all right, this was a bad idea, this was a good idea. Then let's try my idea and we'll go the other direction. Where it becomes difficult is let me say it differently. I think that there are also times when you agree in consultation that there are things you don't need to consult about. So, Phil's going to defer to me to make the decisions in the grocery store about what's most healthy because that's not his strength. And I don't consult with him then every time I want to go to the grocery and buy things, right? So there are areas in life where you agree to defer to the other person to use their own best judgment. I've been in situations where there's this striving for a decision and it just does not work. And so sometimes you have to step back and decide that it's not a deferring situation, but you're missing something. So at times you may need to invite a third person in. Or someone with some level of expertise, or you're actually trying to make a decision about a family member and forgetting to involve the family member in the consultation, right? So there's times when you need to look at how you're going about the consultation, and is there actually something different that needs to be happening than, what is it that actually has you blocked that you're not moving forward in reaching a decision. The House of Justice says consultation is no easy skill to learn, and it isn't. And when we get good at it, it is priceless. It's just absolutely such a gift to be able to to come to a meeting of the minds in a peaceful way. What other thoughts are on people's minds? All have perfect marriages.
If you didn't see her laughing, she was laughing.
Well, one of the things that we have to stop and realize with marriage, that part of that quotation about fortress for well-being, the rest of it is fortress for well-being and salvation. So salvation is about the quality of our spiritual life after we die. And it may even be part of the spiritual quality of our life here. And so our spouse is one of the key people who accompany us to have our soul in shape, so that when we get to the next world or whatever it is that happens after this, we're actually like ready for it. And so this ever improve the spiritual life of each other, all of these things that help us to learn patience and responsibility, all the virtues, are part of preparing us for serving other people and preparing us for a spiritual life after this. And so when we get frustrated, when things are difficult, when it feels like our spouse is a test, and this is not you, Phil, of course, when we feel like our spouse is there testing us, it's actually a gift to help tune us up for whatever it is that we need to do in life.
I thought testing our spouse was part of our role.
He's good at it. We're both good at it.
The truth.
Wow. Now, Rohia Khanum, the wife of Shoghi Effendi, talks about marriage knocking the sharp corners off of each other, right? It's not easy adjusting to living with another human being. It just isn't. We're different. We're different genders. We've had different life experiences, different histories, just all of it. And it's not easy to adjust to living with someone else. But this is where friendship comes in, right? So if you remember that you are friends, that you are in each other's corner, that you are appreciative of each other's service, that, all of the things that make it easier to live with someone, that's important. What else?
I just wanted to say also, the important thing that I found is that the willingness to grow with each other even as they change, because the person I married so many years ago, it has changed, and so have I.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I think people hold on to, well, that's not who I married.
Yeah, it's a very important point, Carolyn. Thank you. Yeah, we're all growing and changing on a daily basis.
And if you're working at trying to improve the spiritual life of each other, you would hope that they're not the person you married. The same person, that they've evolved and whatever.
Well, I certainly want him with more hair like I met him with.
Actually, Phil has more hair than when we married.
That's true, but that's because of the better nutrition and a lot of TLC.
Can I ask a question? What do you think of I don't know if this is I think it's a true statistic that married men live longer than single men, but married women don't live as long as single women. I wonder, is that probably because of the, we still have a lot of, well, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think it's probably because gender roles are still, we have a long way to go. I think women do a lot more generally, right? If they work, their second shift starts again at home, and I don't know, they have more of the caregiving role. And I just thought of the equality piece that you were talking about, I think.
Yeah, we are still, I think, at the infant stages with equality. We're just each generation is learning to do it better, and we're all still growing with it very much. And it's been a while since I've seen the research, so I remember the part about men living longer. Yeah, and a lot of that is just the reminders to take care of their health. But I'm not surprised about the women part. Where women are still being raised to sacrifice everything, and that has a negative impact on health. One of the things that I appreciate about Phil is he recognizes when I need to take care of myself, for one, but it took me a little while to recognize that it actually makes him happy when I take care of myself. So, there's the constant self-sacrifice actually makes him unhappy. So it has helped me to do some rebalancing of that. I was raised that you drop everything to do to help everybody else. And so it has taken a few decades for me to understand that it can be different. So still definitely a work in progress.
Well, if she runs herself into the ground, who's going to take care of me?
And part of it's energy balancing. So I'm more introverted, he's more extroverted, and introverted and extroverted in terms of energy management. So he gets really excited to be with people, and it raises his energy. I have to be more careful if I'm with people too much or too extensively, then my energy level goes down. And so he will notice when my energy level's going down and suggest, some quiet alone time to recharge and that kind of thing. And I have found working with couples that that's a key area of challenge if it's not recognized. So if you're if your spouse is more introverted in terms of energy, and they work all day, they're with people all day, they come home, and you want them to then go into this large group meeting for the evening, it may be a struggle for them, and they may not last through all of the meeting. And I know some couples then go in separate vehicles so that the spouse who needs to more time alone can leave a little early if they need to. But I've had couples where they get into a fight every time there's a community meeting because he wants to leave early. So that's obviously not conducive to unity in the family. And so you just need to know each other and know your own self well enough to know. And what I have found is that if you know that there is some kind of meeting coming up that you both actually really want to last all the way through, then you make sure that you've got some alone time ahead of time, your batteries are in good shape going into the meeting, and then you can maybe last through the whole thing. But that energy balancing is important in all aspects of marriage, to understand what each other's needs are for alone time or downtime or time with people, and make sure that you're accommodating each other's needs. Anything else on anybody's mind?
I'd like to thank you, Suzanne and Phil, for sharing your thoughts in this presentation with us. It's been very helpful. I'm sure others agree. I can see people nodding. That yeah, and it was wonderful. Wonderful to be with some people from America, from the United States, at this time, just to feel a sense of unity. It's always good.
And I actually have both passports. I have a Canadian one and an American one.
It's one world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a lot of resources. I think one of the emails I sent to you had some information on it, and I'll do a follow-up one as well. Lots of books, and they are available. Most of my books are available through Indigo Chapters, which is a Canadian company. They're also often on Amazon.ca, but I know that may be an issue. One of the ones that I've written for Baha'i couples is this Revitalizing Our Marriage. So the Baha'i writings are all the way through it, and that's one that may be useful for you. And I've got a number of online courses that are under development and planning to be launched over the months to come too. So you'll get an invitation if you want to be on my newsletter, just so that you're tuned into things that are that are happening. So I really appreciate that Cynthia reached out to me and had the opportunity to meet all of you and be with all of you. It was my pleasure and privilege tonight to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
And thanks, Cynthia, for making the contact.
Yeah.
You
And
give
thank you.
some candy to Phil once in a while?
I'm sorry?
Didn't catch that.
Do you give Phil some candy sometimes?
He has he still has a small bag, just not pills anymore. And it's funny because once I started feeding him fruit, his craving for sugar and candy actually went way down.
Yeah, I don't crave it like I used to, which is good.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Anything that will grow more hair, that would be great.
Yep, sign me up.
There you go.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.